BookTube. I mentioned earlier today in a 3-hour book haul that I was out and about, that we were out and about on the roads looking at the thrift shops and antique malls here in Vermont. And one of the things that always happens when we do those trips, we go to a place called Queechee, which is a big, sprawling antique mart. Oh, every item you could imagine under the sun there on consignment. So that, it's a million different dealers with a million different things. And you could spend a whole afternoon wandering around in Queechee and never exhaust the weird and strange things that you would see. And the first time that Mark took me there, I found a corner with just thousands of comic books for like $1 a piece. And among those comics, I had Frida with me, and I didn't want to spend the time looking at every single one of them. But among those comics, I found a bunch of old Legion of Superheroes issues, which, for those of you who don't know, is a DC comic book starring a team of superpowered teenagers 1,000 years in the future. Started 50 years ago. I have been a loyal Legion fan forever. I absolutely love it. I know an unhealthy amount about it. I've followed it in all of its incarnations. Right down to pretty much the present day. I stopped going to my LCS, my local comic shop, because of the pandemic. And then when things started to ease up again, it just wasn't on my route anymore. I had other things to do, other places to go, but nowhere near my LCS. And it was right around that time that DC Comics decided to relaunch the Legion of Superheroes. And Mark Richardson and his wife Deb very kindly agreed to go to their LCS and get the Legion. Now, I think the Legion has been discontinued. There hasn't been an issue in a long time. And the run that they relaunched was not particularly good. So there's part of me that misses having a Legion of Superheroes comic every month, but there's also part of me that doesn't miss that run continuing. But one way or another, every time that I've gone back to Queechee, I've gone to that corner. And every time there have been some Legion of Superheroes issues that I didn't have, but always fewer and fewer. And it's not like that. It's probably not like that dealer is replenishing. That's probably just their whole collection that they put there. So I couldn't expect those things to keep coming. The most I could expect was that maybe I'd find a stray issue that I'd missed the first time. And I think that's what happened today. Because we went back to Queechee and I went out to that corner and found a few Legion and Legion-related issues that I hadn't had before. So this will be in the nature of a comic book video, and I'll carefully mark it so that those of you who aren't interested in comics don't have to watch. The first one of these things is from 1990, I think. 1990 says so right on the cover. And this is not the Legion of Superheroes. This is the writer Alan Grant. Had the idea of making a 20th century version of the Legion of Superheroes. The Legion of Superheroes is in the 30th century, 1,000 years from now. He decided to try and have a Legion of Superheroes in the 20th century, in the time of the Justice League and the Teen Titans and whatnot. And he called it L.E.G.I.O.N. So those words all stand for something, but when you stand them together, they are the word Legion. And he had some inspired ideas. Like, for instance, one of the main characters of the Legion of Superheroes, 1,000 years in the future, is a teenager named Brainiac 5. Who's from the planet Kolu, and whose superpower that gets him into the Legion is unbelievable intelligence. And the name was very carefully chosen by the hack writer who invented the character, because Brainiac, no 5, just Brainiac, was one of Superman's main villains. Also green skin. That gave a bit of a problem. That presented a bit of a problem for continuity once down the line, because Superman's Brainiac was an android, so it would not have any progeny, at least not on a planet. But one way or another, Alan Grant thought, okay, well, you've got Brainiac, no numbers, just Brainiac, who is Superman's villain. But what if you had somebody from Kolu? What if you had a basically Brainiac 2, who ran this team? And so he invented that character. One of the other characters in the Legion of Superheroes is Tasmia Maller. She's the hereditary champion of the planet Talok. She has blue skin, and she became Shadowlass. The hereditary champion of Talok gains the ability to manipulate blackness and to see in complete darkness. And Alan Grant thought, okay, well, if that's a hereditary championship, then maybe there was a 20th century version of that as well. And so on and so forth down the line. He even went so far as to have one of the members of the 30th century Legion of Superheroes transported to the present day in a time accident that also robs her of her memory. So there were all sorts of callbacks and call forwards to the Legion of Superheroes. But there was another one that was just sitting out there, just waiting for L period, E period, G period, I period, O period, N period. And that is a fundamental Legion of Superheroes character. 1,000 years in the future. I'm explaining all this when I've already said that only comics people need to watch this. So the comics people already know this. I mean, there was a Superboy story about a young boy whose rocket crashes in Smallville, and the boy appears to have Kryptonian superpowers, and his rocket falls on a Monday, and his memory's a little faulty, and he's pretty sure that he is Superboy's brother, but he can't really remember anything else. So Ma and Pa Kent decide to call him Mon-El for Monday, because his rocket fell on a Monday. And Clark Kent's name, Superboy's name, is Kal-El. So we're brothers, and you can't remember everything. We'll just call you Mon-El. And it turns out in the course of that story, it was just a one-off. It's just a quick thing. We never saw this character again. But it turns out in the course of that story that Mon-El is not Superboy's brother. He's actually from a planet called Daxam, which is a lot like Krypton. If its inhabitants leave their solar system, they gain superpowers. But it's different because Kryptonians, their weakness when they leave their own planet is irradiated rock from their own homeworld, kryptonite. Whereas when Daxamites leave their own planet, their weakness is atmospheric lead. Any trace of lead in an atmosphere, and since lead is very common, that's why they don't leave their world. And this character, who turns out his name is Largand, not Mon-El, he starts to die of lead poisoning because he's away from his planet. And the only way that Superboy can come up with, the only solution he can come up with to save this kid's life, is to put him in the Phantom Zone, the alternate dimension that Superboy's father, Jor-El, created to imprison Kryptonian criminals forever. They go into the Phantom Zone and they can't get back out again. So they are phantom creatures. Famously, them being in the Phantom Zone allows them to survive the destruction of Krypton, which is why you get General Zod constantly popping up to fight Superman, because he and his compatriots live in the Phantom Zone. Superboy decides that it's a good reason. No, the writer of the book wasn't really thinking all that hard. Decides, I have to save your life, so I'll sentence you to an eternity with a bunch of homicidal maniacs in this alternate dimension. So he does, and a later writer thought, well, okay, time doesn't pass in the Phantom Zone, so Largan, Mon-El, will still be around in the Phantom Zone when the Legion of Superheroes is a team. And they've got Brainiac 5, who's the greatest genius in the galaxy. He can surely come up with a way to rescue Mon-El from the Phantom Zone and make him a charter member of the Legion of Superheroes. That's what happens. Brainiac 5 also comes up with a cure for lead poisoning so that Mon-El becomes the most powerful Legionnaire. He's as powerful as Superboy with no weaknesses. And it's very interesting. No writer has ever really plumbed. Of course, if you lived for 1,000 years as a disembodied spirit surrounded by maniacs and evil people, you wouldn't be the same when that was over, even if your body hadn't aged. But nevertheless, Mon-El's an interesting Legion character. But when Alan Grant put together L period, E period, G period, I period, O period, N period, it was an unbearable temptation to introduce Largand, who exists in the 21st century, to introduce a retrofitted idea of Largand and say, why does he look so familiar? Because this is going to be Mon-El. And everybody who read this knew this. And the artwork here is by Barry Kitson back in 1990. This is Legion 1990. They changed the title for every year that the book was in print. And this is Barry Kitson artwork. I had never been a big fan of his, but he has a lot of fans. I used to have the whole of the run of this comic in every year. I couldn't get enough of anything to do with the Legion, and this was to do with the Legion in a way. And plus, if you were a diehard Legion fan, the member of the team who was transported back in time and lost her memory, you were kind of wondering when that was going to get resolved and how. So I would have followed this anyway, but there were some standout issues in this book. I don't have any of them anymore. They weren't really all that compelling to go back and revisit, but I wanted this issue, and that is a Kevin Maguire cover there. That is just, he's a little bit slow for regular monthly work, but boy oh boy does he do great covers. So that was Legion Connected. All the other books here are actual Legion comics. The first one is just the Legion of Superheroes. That is, those of you who know this book will know, that is Sunboy, Dirk Magna, who's from Earth. He's one of only a handful of Legion members who are from Earth. this guy, Dr. Regulus, trapped him in some sort of weird nuclear or solar reactor, and instead of killing him, incinerating him instantly, it gave him solar-related powers. And there they are fighting each other. And this is from the 1970s or 1980s. Is that right? No, it'll be the 1980s. 1982, when all the world made sense. And this has artwork by Pat Broderick. That run is really good. This particular issue is falling apart, but that's fine by me. That's fine by me. This is sort of a classic little confrontation between Sunboy and the man who literally made him what he is. This next one is Tales of the Legion of Superheroes. This is a story even too long for this channel. And there was a thing that DC Comics tried back in the 80s. It's impossible to explain. I don't think anybody at even DC Comics understood it, even when they were doing it. They did it with the Teen Titans, and they did it with the Legion of Superheroes, where you had the main book, the Teen Titans and the Legion of Superheroes, and then you had another book that was Tales of, that was reprinting and revisiting and shifting around in chronology. The Titans did it different from the Legion. Anyway, it didn't matter, because for Legion fans, it meant 2 Legion comics a month. And I don't care what kind of mental gymnastics I have to go through for that. But that's what this is. This is Tales of the Legion of Superheroes. I believe this cover, I don't know if it'll be signed, but I think this cover is by an artist we just lost. An artist who just recently died. Well, anyway, this is that you've got a whole bunch of characters that you don't really recognize here. And the reason why is because the Legion was constant. Well, you've got some that you do recognize. There's Mon-El, the very character I was talking about. But the Legion was constantly trying to find new members. They had a Legion tryout day, but they also had a Legion Academy where they were training the people who had succeeded in the tryout days. And a lot of these characters were relatively new at the time. And it's a sign of how well I know the Legion that I know everything there is to know about every one of these. That is Mon-El, but there is those of you who are diehard Legion fans will see that there is actually an actual Kryptonian on this cover. I'm not going to reveal who it is, but nevertheless, you've got all sorts of characters here that I know every detail about their past. And this also is a kind of classic issue. Just because it introduces so many interesting new characters, and these were cheap. These single issues were cheap, and I don't have them. And DC has been very slow to reprint a lot of Legion. They are now doing it in big, fat volumes. They will get to this era, but they haven't yet. And these issues are always worth revisiting. I got another Tales of the Legion of Superheroes, and this is a little bit later than this first one, but it is still. I was going to say, as you can tell, but you probably can't tell one way or another. Those were all relatively new Legion of Superheroes members. At least, apparently. I mean, that looks like Cosmic Boy, but it's not. It's his younger brother. This guy is relatively new. The Polar Boy is an older figure. He's an older character, but he was part of the Legion of Substitute Heroes, and here he wants to be part of the main team. And then there's this character right there, Censor Girl, who was part of a great plotline where I think it was Paul Levitz who wrote it, where this character, this fully masked character, tries out for the Legion, and we get the strong suspicion that she is someone the Legion knows really well, has already been a Legionnaire, but we don't know quite who she is until it's revealed. Very good storyline, but this issue, this had a different cover when it was in the main Legion story. It was given this cover when it was reprinted in Tales of the Legion of Superheroes, but fine by me. I'm sure I don't have it. And then the last one here is almost 2 decades later. This is the relaunch of the Legion of Superheroes. DC Comics is constantly doing big events that reboot their continuity, and every time they do that, they need to relaunch and reimagine the Legion of Superheroes, because if you change the 20th century, you're changing the 30th century. So the Legion of Superheroes has been rebooted more times than I want to think about. And I heard that this reboot was coming, and I had high hopes, and it was largely awful. It did a lot of damage to a lot of established characters. And the writer who did it is Mark Waid. And I really don't get that, because he is a pretty much traditionalist. He cares about the back lore. He didn't show it in this. And the artwork, even though this is 15 or 16 years later than the one I started with, is also by Barry Kitson. He just kept at it. When he was tapped to do the Legion, and so he did. We have a big spread panel there. You can see one of the reasons why I kind of don't like this artist is you can see his artwork hasn't really changed all that much. It's kind of static, so it doesn't really grow all that much. Now, this was the first issue of this relaunch of the Legion of Superheroes. Totally re-envisioned, most of it re-envisioned. I remember absolutely hating this, but I'm going to give it another try. I would never buy a trade paperback of these, but the first issue for $1, I'll give it a try and see. I remember it confusing me at the time because Mark Waid's writing tends not to. And in this, I didn't get what he was trying to do at all. In fact, no, I did get what he was trying to do. I just didn't like it at all. I thought it was just wrong completely. And a little bit of a harbinger of things to come. One of the first modern, relatively modern instances where I wanted to say to the writer, these aren't your characters. You can't do whatever you want with them. You're a caretaker here. You can't just change them fundamentally to suit your whim. But I have had many occasions to say that since. So, but one way or another, that was the comic book haul part of the day. But there are more videos coming. Don't you worry. Thank you, BookTube.